Some exclusive reporting about an apparent error in the ICE recruitment system that meant some officers got sent into field offices without proper training. Apparently, ICE uses this AI tool to categorize new recruits who have worked in law enforcement before. But there was some kind of a glitch, according to our reporting with it, that led to ICE temporarily putting recruits with little to no experience into a more experienced category, meaning they got less training, according to two law enforcement officials familiar with this error.
Well, if you needed proof that ICE is not being run by our best nor our brightest, it's now being reported that thanks to over-reliance on an AI tool, some ICE recruits were sent to field offices without the proper training. So the AI tool used by ICE was tasked with looking for potential applicants with law enforcement experience to be placed into the agency's LEO or LEO program, short for law enforcement officer. For new recruits who are already law enforcement officers, it requires 4 weeks of online training. Applicants without law enforcement backgrounds are required to take an 8-week in-person course at ICE's Academy at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia, which includes courses in immigration law and handling a gun, as well as physical fitness tests. So when the AI scanned these ICE resumes, if the word officer was anywhere on the application, the applicant would then just be automatically put into the LEO program. So it didn't necessarily mean that they were a law enforcement officer. They could be like, some other, I don't know what other kind of officers there are. Or they could even just say, I want to be an ICE officer, and then they would get put into the LEO program. So once the Department of Homeland Security clocked the error about a month in, they started manually reviewing the resumes at that point. However, this error occurred at the height of ICE recruitment last year. By the end of 2025, ICE was supposed to hire 10,000 new agents, a goal that ICE claims to have hit, but this new insight means that they didn't actually meet their hiring target. Also, Kristi Noem claims that ICE hired actually 12,000 new agents last year, but new federal workforce database contradicts Noem's claim of 12,000 new ICE agents. The agency has hired 7,114 employees and lost 1,746 since January of last year, according to the Office of Personnel Management data. So that means a net growth of not 10,000, not 12,000, but just 5,368 employees since Trump took office last year. And this should be encouraging because we know that they're not being picky about who they let into their ranks, and maybe people just don't want to join it. But Laura Jadid, a veteran turned independent journalist who has been publicly outspoken against Trump and his administration and ICE, got hired to work for ICE when she really should not have been. Initially, she just wanted to see what the application process would be like, for science, but here's what happened.
The hiring event, basically, you brought your resume in, you handed it over, they were going to do an interview, and they were promising on-the-spot hiring to where you could, in fact, walk out with your $50,000 bonus that day, possibly. I went in, I handed in my resume, which was, I did a skills-based resume. I'm a veteran, I served 2 tours in Afghanistan. So on the surface, the resume looked pretty good. Had a very brief interview, took all of 6 minutes. They didn't ask very many questions. And then I left, assuming I would never hear back, because I'm a very Googleable person. I have an unusual name. I'm the only Laura Jadid on the internet. And I make no secret of how I feel about ICE and Trump and all of it. So I was not expecting several days later to receive a tentative offer. I missed it in my inbox and it sunk to the bottom, which means that I never filled out the paperwork they requested. I never accepted the tentative offer. I never filled out my background check paperwork. I never signed the affidavit saying I committed no domestic violence crimes, none of it.
So she goes on to say that she should have been eliminated based on the drug test alone. Instead, this is what happened.
A few weeks later, I got a message from LabCorp saying that ICE wanted me to do a drug test, and I went ahead and did that. I was pretty sure I wouldn't pass. I'd partaken in legal cannabis 6 days before the test, but why not waste some of their money, right? And then 9 days after that, I decided I wanted to, I was curious, had they processed the drug test yet? So I logged onto the ICE hiring portal, and what I found was that not only did the drug test not seem to be relevant, I was listed as having joined ICE as of 3 days earlier. I had listed that I had accepted the offer. They had offered me a final position as a deportation officer. My background check was listed as completed 3 days in the future from when I was looking at it. So it seems like the answer to the question, who are they hiring, is they don't know.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm starting to think that these numbers are unreliable. So overall, the American people, they are fed up with ICE and its antics. It's ramping up its operations in places like Minneapolis, as we've all seen, and it seems likely to do so in other major cities across the country, like Boston, for example. However, backlash against ICE is becoming more pronounced. And apart from all the protests, a new CNN poll found that ICE's net approval rating is sitting at -17. In his first term, it was at 0 in Trump's first term. Now it's dropped to 7, it's dropped 17 points, and that number is even lower among independents. Also, calls to abolish ICE, not to reform ICE, are getting louder, and not just from random people on the internet. Representative Sri Thanedar from Michigan announced that he will be introducing a bill this week to abolish ICE. Here's what he had to say. He said, "We must reform ICE. But it looks at this stage, folks, ICE is beyond reform. ICE is totally out of control. And this week I intend to introduce a bill to abolish ICE. We do not need the murders. We do not need this paramilitary organization's members on our streets, terrorizing US citizens, terrorizing moms, terrorizing our children." And just a quick, in case you were wondering, by the way, Jonathan Ross, the ICE agent who murdered Renee Good, was not one of these officers who was improperly trained. He's been with ICE for about a decade. So he can't be like, "Oh, well, they didn't tell me what to do in this situation. Oh, I didn't know how to use my gun properly, so I just like shot it accidentally 3 times." He's not one of those. He knew what he was doing, and when he walked away, he had no remorse about it. So it is encouraging, Waz, that the American people seem to be souring on ICE. I would be curious to see how many people were pro-ICE to begin with, and now they're like, ooh. I imagine that number of people, the explanation for the drop has more to do with people who just genuinely thought that this was a border patrol agency that was like really out here to pick up the bad guys and the criminals and the really dangerous people. But then, a lot of people have, as soon as ICE actually started working the way that they intended to work under the Trump administration, people saw like, these are not the criminals that we were promised. These are just everyday people. And hopefully the killing of Renee Good was a big wake up call to some people who are still holding out hope that Trump is actually not the worst person to be leading our country right now.
It's crazy because so many things pop into my mind. This program is like extremely well funded, right? And they're well funded and they'll take anybody. And yet over the course of a year, only 5,000 people were hired net. I mean, that's just bad news for the sort of marketing of the work that they're doing. I think people are looking at it, even in our horrible economy, with something that's this well funded and is an automatic ticket to a middle class job. And people are just straight up like, no, I'm not doing it because it's disgusting. People are repulsed by what they're doing. Like, to be asked to do this, be separating parents from their kids, just snatching them out of their homes and snatching people out of school and snatching people from court, and the agony and the just, the horror of all of it. Like the fact that nobody wants to do this is, it's just kind of crazy to me. I'm honestly surprised by this because of how hard it is to come by a solid middle class job. Like, I think about even something like NYPD in New York, which is another well-funded police, law enforcement, whatever agency you want to call. And man, a lot of people join up because you don't need to have a college degree. You'll be in 6 figures in no time. You're gonna have a pension after 25 years or 30 years or whatever the hell it's gonna be. Incredible benefits. You basically can't get fired. Like, it's an obvious job that you should want to take. Even though we know it's difficult, but what police officers do on a day-to-day. So for ICE to just have no enthusiasm in terms of recruitment is just quite telling about how people feel. And I think the other thing that we know, guys, is that ICE was never meant to actually perform the task that Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are alleging. Like, you cannot remove 10 million people from this country with freaking ICE. It's just not possible.
Yeah, the numbers that they were, I mean, and they said that they were going to remove that many criminals, like dangerous criminals. And it's like, we don't have them, and that's why they started picking up people in front of the Home Depot and saying, we're going to deport these people instead. And it is encouraging that they're having such a hard time hiring, to the point that they're lying about the recruitment numbers, and they're lying about how many people have quit since they started working there. And also in that interview, I didn't show this clip, but the journalist, she also said that the goal, she was told by the ICE recruitment agent that the goal is to get all of these people in the field, not behind desks, but in the field deporting people or whatever.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.